The locals knew better than to go near the old bridge after dark. Legend had it that the spirits of those who passed filled its cloudy depths, forever searching for an escape. On nights like these, a heavy fog descended on the area, and distant moans echoed through the woods around the bridge. The problem was that on this night, there was a car passing through this small town, unaware about the legend of this bridge. And tonight, unfortunately, they would discover this bridge's dark secrets. "Come on, Joey," shouted Trina. "What are you doing?" Joey was behind the wheel. He had started to slow down. "What do you think I'm doing? I can't hardly see out there." "Maybe we should park?" suggested Billy. His girlfriend Heather leaned up against his side. "I think that Billy might be right. This bridge is pretty long, right? I don't want to drive off the edge of it." "We can't just stop," said Joey. "Otherwise, we're gonna get hit. There's no way that any other cars are gonna be able to see the headlights." Trina said, "That's all the more reason to go faster. We'll get to the other side quicker." "New rule." Joey held up one hand. "No backseat drivers. If you want to be a backseat driver, then the next time we decide to take a trip, you have to do all the actual driving." Almost instantly, his friends fell silent. The four people had known each other for years and were heading further east to the coast so they could spend some time on the beaches before their next semester of college started up. Joey was the one that had been elected the driver, mostly because it was his car, and the others were all pitching in for gas. Trina was his girlfriend. She crossed her arms over her chest and said, "I knew that we should have stuck to the main roads. Taking these back roads never gets us anywhere but lost." They didn't say anything after that, the whole car falling silent in order to give Joey a chance to concentrate. It truly was a foggy night out. Thick plumes of silver and gray drifted over the bridge, blocking off the sight of the bridge itself. The front hood of the car was partially obscured too. Joey slowed down. He started to get nervous. They drove on and on and on. Trina leaned over, putting a hand on the top of his thigh. "What's wrong?" "We're almost out of gas," said Joey. Billy snorted. "That's impossible. We filled up the tank before we left that weird little town." "Yeah, well, we're almost out," said Joey. Trina asked, "Is the bridge that long?" "There's no way it's that long," said Heather. "Even the Golden Gate Bridge doesn't take a full tank of gas to cross. This is weird. Something's not right." The car gave a terrible sort of chugging sound. It lurched forward, the engine sputtering as it stopped getting enough gasoline to move. The car crept to a stop. Joey left both hands on the steering wheel and stared straight ahead. "I don't like this." "I don't either," said Trina. "But I'm not going to spend all night in the car. I'm getting out." She grabbed her purse and went to get out. Before she could, Joey grabbed her hand. He said, "That might not be a good idea. Remember, we were talking about how no one could see the car in this fog? They sure aren't going to be able to see you." Trina frowned. "Okay, what part of 'I'm not going to spend the night in the car' didn't you understand?" Billy said, "I guess that we haven't seen any other cars going in either direction." "Right," said Trina. She pushed open her door and stepped out. Fog spilled into the car. For some reason, the sight of the fog in the car was enough to send the other three hurrying out. It was unnerving, being surrounded by all of this billowing gray. Joey pulled his phone out to try and turn on the flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. The phone was just a solid black screen. "My phone's dead." The others checked their phones as well, but each one had met the same fate. Even Trina, who had been charging her phone in the car, found that she didn't have enough battery to turn the phone back on. "Joey," said Trina, "what's going on?" "I don't know." Joey walked over to the edge of the bridge, putting his hands against it. "The fog's so thick. I can't see anything that we could use as a landmarker." I mean, the car is a pretty good landmarker, said Billy. Also, what do we need a landmarker for? We've got a straight path that way. Anyone know what time it is? Heather questioned. Not with the phones dead, said Billy. Joey ducked back into the car. Let me check the clock. He tried to turn it on, but the battery just clicked a few times and stayed off. Okay, I guess the battery is dead now too, Billy said. We know that none of this is normal, right? Trina challenged. So what is it then, huh? If it's not normal? It's just, we've got a leak or something and we killed the battery. Billy shook his phone at her. And this? You watch too many cat videos, said Trina, spinning on one foot and storming away from the car, down the length of the fog-covered bridge. Joey almost tripped trying to get out of the car and go after her. Hey, don't just go off on your own, Trina. I'm coming. He had to jog to catch up to her. Trina asked, Why is everyone acting like this? It's a straight path. You get on the bridge at one end of the line, and you get off the bridge at the other end of the line. It's not like you can get lost while you're on this thing. Right. Joey walked at her side for a few moments. Then he asked, Then why do I feel like we're lost? I just want to get off this thing. We'll find someone on the other side and call for a tow. And you're going to put out extra for a really nice hotel room for me. You hear me? A really nice one, Trina said. And they kept walking. It was sometime later that they realized that Billy and Heather had never joined them. And sometime after that when Trina announced, I'm exhausted. I have to stop and take a break. She leaned against the railing of the bridge, her eyes closing. I don't understand how we're still on this thing. I don't either, said Joey with a shake of his head. Billy was on to something. Where is he anyway? I don't know, Trina. They should have been right behind us. It's this fog. It's playing tricks on our minds or something. We just need to keep going, Joey insisted. At times, it looked as though there were lights glinting in the fog. These bright sparks of color that would burst into being like eyes blinking in the distance. It sent a shiver down Joey's spine whenever he noticed them. He hoped that they would be able to make it off this bridge soon. The thought of being stuck out here for too much longer was enough to make his chest start to ache. If Trina noticed the lights, she hadn't said anything about them. She wasn't saying much of anything at the moment. He only let Trina sit for a moment before ushering her off and leading her along the path again. The fog continued to cling to them, making the air feel much more colder than it should have. There's a shape in the distance. That's a car, Trina shouted. We found someone. The two take off running. But it's their own car. The realization brings them to an abrupt stop. Joey said, We must have turned around at some point. After that break we took? There's no way that we got turned around, said Trina. She stepped towards the car. But look, Heather and Billy are there. They were visible through the back window of the car. Joey and Trina moved forward. Joey slapped a hand against the back of the trunk and then ripped open the back door. There you guys are. Have you just been sitting here this whole... He cut off in a scream and fell backwards. Trina asked, What's wrong? But the answer was obvious. Billy and Heather were in the back seat of the car, dead. They were sitting next to each other, leaning against each other. Their faces gaunt and their skin paper. It looked like they had starved to death, even though it could only have been hours since they started walking. Tina began to cry. What happened to them? Joey grabbed onto her, pulling her into a tight hug. He held on, as though there was nothing else he could do. I don't know, but we can't stay here. He let go of her and climbed onto the hood of the car, then up onto the roof of the car. He looked around, but the fog and the dark of the night made it impossible to see anything in either direction. But still, it was just a bridge, right? Trina, what she said earlier, that had to be correct. There was only one way on and one way off. He got back down off the car and took hold of Trina's hand, tangling their fingers together so that they didn't get separated. "Come on," said Joey. "We just need to keep going in the same direction. No more stopping either. We walk until we find the end of the path." Trina looked horrified at the thought of leaving their friends dead in the back of the car. But she couldn't not listen to her boyfriend. Clutching at each other, the two went forward, into the fog once more, struggling to find their way to the end of the bridge. But they never would. For when the fog was thickest and the night was longest, the bridge to nowhere claimed victims, pulling more souls into the darkness of the world around them. More lights to fill up the foggy nights. More power to keep the darkness trapped within the stone arch fed. The car was found 3 days later on the far end of the bridge, completely empty. Search parties went out by the big city folk, but those who lived near the bridge knew that there was no point in looking for the 4 youngsters. Once the bridge took someone, there was no getting them back.
Subscribe today or beware.